the Department of Finance, obviously the CRA side, that's the implementation side. I would love to learn further. I do understand somewhat the issue that he is raising, that the honourable member is raising, and we could take that offline and discuss that further. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary will have 3 minutes, just a little over 3 minutes for questions and comments after question period when this bill is back before the House. Statements by members, déclaration des députés, l'honorable.
The Honourable Member for Glengarry Prescott Russell. Madam Speaker, last week, a Franco-Ontarian from Hawkesbury and proud ambassador of field hockey made international headlines. Last week, Bob Hartley, coach of the Amos Avant-Garde, won the Gagarin Cup, a cup awarded to the winner of the Continental Field Hockey League. Starting his career with a local team, the Hawkesbury Hawks, Bob Hartley had a career that would make our region proud. After winning the President Cup in 1993 with the Laval Titans and the Stanley Cup in 2001 with the Nordique, and also with the Colorado Avalanche, Bob Hartley has just added the Gagarin Cup to his record of achievements. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to congratulate Bob, and we're very proud of you.
Honourable Member for Selkirk Interlake Eastman.
Madam Speaker, May is Melanoma Awareness Month. With summer just around the corner, the Save Your Skin Foundation is focusing on increasing awareness and promoting treatment for skin cancer. My wife, Kelly, is a melanoma skin cancer survivor. While she was fortunate enough to beat it, many others have lost their battle to the stealthy disease, and many others continue fighting. In 2020, it was estimated that approximately 8,000 Canadians would be diagnosed with melanoma and 1,300 would die from it. Sadly, these numbers rise every year. Skin cancer is caused by overexposure to UV radiation, with the sun and artificial tanning beds being the main culprits. In the past, I tabled a private member's bill that prohibited youth under 18 from using tanning beds, plus strengthened warning labels on artificial tanning equipment as carcinogenic. This was enacted by our previous Conservative government. The good news is prevention is easy. This summer, I encourage all Canadians to enjoy the great outdoors and be skin safe. Wear sunscreen, cover up, seek shade, and avoid tanning beds, and of course, have lots and lots of fun.
The Honourable Member for Sackville Preston Chesapeake.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today I rise in the House to congratulate Freedom Kitchen on their grand opening. This soup kitchen, located in Lower Sackville, Nova Scotia, officially opened its permanent building located next to Knox Church, April 19th. Since the start of their pilot project in October 2019, the volunteers at Freedom Kitchen have served over 20,000 meals to the community, many of which during the pandemic. Now, with a permanent building, this tireless community organization can build capacity, provide shelter, and even help more people in Lower Sackville and surrounding areas. The volunteers at Freedom Kitchen, like volunteers across the riding of Sackville, Preston, Chesapeake, have shown the strength, the selflessness of our community by stepping up during difficult times and donating their own time to help others. I invite all members of the House to join me in congratulating the amazing volunteers at Freedom Kitchen on their grand opening. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, yesterday at the National Assembly, the Liberal Party of Quebec tabled a motion to commemorate the 60th anniversary of the Department of Cultural Affairs. I would also like to pay tribute to the men and women who are defending and promoting our culture. George Amélie Lapalme, Nathalie Roy, Clément Richard, Maka Koto, and many others. They have all been ardent defenders of our lively and bold culture. And I would like to remind everyone for that Quebec culture to continue to flourish and be heard and seen internationally. It is more than time to repatriate all the powers and federal budgets for culture so that we can fully ensure the cultural development of the Quebec nation. Long live our culture. The Honourable Member for Alfred Pallon.
Nous allons continuer ensuite.
We're going to continue and then go back.
For Foothills.
The phone would ring, and the phone would be greeted with, "John, what do you want to help with?" It could be anything from a fundraising dinner, a charity gala, a political event. You just never knew what it was going to be when Mr. Alan King gave you a call. But you never said no. No one ever said no to Mr. King. But he also gave as good as he got. A political nerd, Mr. King always jumped at the chance to help me with any of my campaigns. But he was also the first person everyone called when you needed help with a fundraising event for a local charity or a project, especially if it had to do with healthcare and education. Last week, the community of Okotoks lost a special person, a champion, an incredible leader, a respected businessman, a mentor, and a dear friend. My heart goes out to the entire community, his friends, and most importantly, his family and his boys. Mr. King, you will be greatly missed, especially by the ladies. And Okotokians will know what I mean when I say over and out.
The Honourable Member for Alfred Pellan. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I had a technical issue. The pandemic still weighs heavily on our mental health. Amongst the young, workers, and the elderly, no one is spared. Until May 9th, we're celebrating National Mental Health Week with the theme Get Real this year. Getting real is about putting words to our emotions, and not just the pretty ones. Getting real is about being aware of how you feel. And getting real is recognizing that we are, after all, human. At Alfred Pellan, remarkable work is being done to support those in need. And I'm thinking particularly of LPABEM, of the Centre d'Écoute de Laval and the resource ATP, who are there on a daily basis to support the members of our community. Our mental health is important, just like that of our loved ones. So let's take time and talk about mental health for real. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Surrey Centre.
Mr. Speaker, today I'd like to recognize an outstanding member of the Surrey community for his generosity during the COVID-19 pandemic. Tony Singh, the founder and president of Fruiticana, recently donated 23,000 pounds of food in two 10-ton trucks to the Surrey Food Bank, and last fall donated $100,000 to the Surrey Hospital Foundation to support the Children's Health Center at the Surrey Memorial Hospital. Tony Singh, his family, and Fruiticana have stepped up whenever called upon, whether that was to welcome Syrian refugees to Surrey, supporting local charities, or helping BC cancer patients during the pandemic. We have seen so many incredible acts of generosity from across the country in the form of donations and volunteering during these challenging times. Thank you, Tony, for your generosity and support to our community. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Long Range Mountains.
Mr. Speaker, it's something we've always known, but the past year has really brought it into the spotlight. Healthcare professionals in this country are incredible, strong, and brave people who keep our families and communities safe. Next week is National Nursing Week, a chance for us all to say thank you to the amazing nurses in our towns who provide truly compassionate care. There's a good chance the first person you see if you have an issue is a nurse. Just a few days ago, the second team of healthcare heroes from Newfoundland and Labrador voluntarily headed to Ontario to help their overstressed healthcare system fight back against the third wave of COVID-19. That team of 7 people included 2 registered nurses from my riding of the Long Range Mountains, Rory and Alice. So thanks to Rory and Alice and every nurse across the country who helps keep us all safe. And if you see a nurse or know a nurse, please tell them thank you for the work they do. And if you truly want to show your appreciation and help make their difficult job a little easier, put up your arm and get your COVID-19 vaccination when it's your turn to do so. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Shepherd.
Premier Ralph Klein used to say, Alberta is a place where you can make $1 million or lose $1 million. Albertans are team players. We've contributed to the success of Canada through equalization, transfers, and the boom that was our energy sector. But the Liberal government continues to abuse Albertans and pass legislation that alienates Prairie Canadians and costs us jobs as well as our livelihoods. In 2018, the Liberals kicked us while we were down by extending an old equalization formula designed for a booming resource economy, even though royalty revenues were structurally anemic. Albertans are frustrated. They have a right to be. That is why I tabled the Equalization and Transfers Fairness Act as a first step in getting Albertans a fair deal in Confederation. Studies show the future of equalization is the fiscal convergence of our fiscal capacity. We are all getting poorer thanks to bad Liberal policies. Let's secure the future of Albertans and vote yes on my bill C-263 and get a fair deal for Albertans in Confederation.
Hear, hear. The honourable member for Kingston and the Islands.
Mr. Speaker, love is more contagious than COVID. Today, I'm honored to stand and recognize a leader in my community, Ken Foster, the founder of the Love Over COVID initiative. After seeing other community members helping those in need, whether by delivering groceries for seniors or simply checking in on neighbors, Ken was inspired to bring positivity and spread love. Love Over COVID sells tote bags and graphic t-shirts with their slogan, "Love is more contagious than COVID." The simple idea that we can stay 6 feet apart and build bridges between the small distances that separate us. The best part about this initiative, Mr. Speaker, is that after each purchase, Ken chooses a local food bank in the city that the purchase was ordered from and donates all the proceeds to a food bank in the respective city. I encourage everyone to visit loveovercovid.com to purchase a t-shirt and wear one forward to their friends and family. I am proud to have such a caring individual in my riding of Kingston and the Islands. Thanks, Ken, for all your efforts in promoting love over COVID.
The honourable member for Desnate, Mississippi, Churchill River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, after losing their majority and finishing second in popular vote in the last election, one would think the Liberal Party would have sought to govern for all Canadians. Instead, this Prime Minister is using a pandemic as an opportunity to bypass Parliament. Let's not forget, Move 1 was the Liberals proposing legislation that would give themselves power to tax and spend with no parliamentary oversight for 21 months. Although that blatant attempt at a power grab failed, the disregard for responsible government has continued. No budget for 25 months, proroguing Parliament to avoid the WE scandal investigation, shutting down committees, and continuous filibustering to impede evidence of corruption from becoming public. Finally, introducing Bill C-10 that would allow them to police what Canadians post on their social media accounts. Mr. Speaker, it's time for responsible, ethical government. The Conservative Party is ready, willing, and able.
The honourable member for Souris Moose Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, this week is Mental Health Week, and this government's failure to deliver COVID-19 vaccines to the provinces is having deep and lasting impacts on the mental health of Canadians, especially those in rural areas. I've heard countless stories from my constituents about the many families have been split apart for well over a year due to COVID, with no promise of reunification happening anytime soon. Those who live near the U.S. border are watching their American neighbors quickly get vaccinated, and they're keenly aware it is this government's inability to deliver vaccines that is keeping them from their loved ones. Seniors are having the hardest hit, with lockdowns severely limiting the number of people who they are being impacted with. Feelings of depression, anxiety, and loneliness have sadly become the status quo for many. With the inconsistent messaging and vaccine shortages, this Prime Minister's third wave continues to ravage our population's physical and mental health. Conservatives know that securing our mental health is key to pandemic recovery, and we will work tirelessly to clean up the mess left by this government.
The honourable member for Algoma, Manitoulin, Kapuskasing.
Mr. Speaker, last summer, Canadians headed outdoors with enthusiasm. Proof can be seen in increased sales for domestic fishing licenses. This was in addition to growth in the angling through outreach from entities like the Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters or the Ontario Women Anglers, who increase and celebrate diversity in sport fishing.
As in previous years, these fishers have proven to be vital to local economies. With the U.S. border still closed, many family businesses are banking on domestic demand for the upcoming season. With the easing of restrictions, I encourage fishers to consider my riding of Algoma, Manitoulin, Kapuskasing, as it offers a new fishing adventure from coast to coast.
From tiny streams to the productive bays of Great Lakes, Huron, and Superior, the region has no end of opportunity for anglers of all abilities and is ready to host them at exclusive American Plan lodges, housekeeping cabins, campgrounds, and much more. Whether it's for the trip of a lifetime or a weekend getaway, once you give this part of Ontario a try, you'll be hooked.
The Honourable Member for Beauport-Limoilou. Mr. Speaker, yesterday an earthquake hit Quebec City and we felt it across our nation. Régis Lebaume is stepping down after 14 years as Mayor of Quebec. He offered an ambitious and simple vision for his city, and the rest of Quebec discovered that first, he has a very strong character. He understood before others that cities would have to play an important role in Quebec politics. And it is thanks to him we got through difficult times such as the mosque shooting. And with him we saw great pride with culture thriving, businesses flourishing, and Quebec earning its stripes as a large North American city. Régis, take advantage of the time with your family. Thank you for sharing everything with us. And we are thinking of you on behalf of the Bloc. Thank you for everything, Régis, and continued success.
The Honourable Member for Charleswood St. James, Assiniboia Headingley.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are looking ahead to rounding the corner on COVID-19, and our country is at a crossroads. Our country's future is at stake, and Canadians must choose which path to recovery they can trust. Our Conservative Recovery Plan will secure our future to help those who have struggled the most through this pandemic get back to work with a stable, good-paying job. Our plan will take immediate action to help those hardest-hit sectors, helping those who have suffered the most, including women and young Canadians. Enact a comprehensive jobs plan to get Canadians back to work across the country and recover the 1 million jobs lost during the pandemic, and work to support small businesses and provide incentives to invest, rebuild, and start new businesses. I believe it's time for a new path forward, one of security and certainty, and that's exactly what Conservatives can and will deliver. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Sherbrooke. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to take a moment to discuss about the impacts and positive spin-offs of Budget 2021, on a topic that is one of the priorities in my riding, social housing. Housing has become a challenge for many families, also for many residents of Sherbrooke. The low vacancy rate of 1.3% is alarming, and 800 people are still waiting for subsidized housing. Since 2015, we've helped over 1 million Canadians find a safe and affordable home. We're investing $2.5 billion, plus there's a $1.3 billion reinvestment to build affordable housing units across Canada. We're talking about building more than 1,500 new housing projects in Quebec. It'll help the lives of thousands of Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oral questions. Question orale, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Monsieur le Président, le Globe and Mail...
Mr. Speaker, the Globe and Mail said that it was amateur hour regarding C10, and Open Media said that the Prime Minister had lost the plot with this bill. Michael Geist said that this is an attack on freedom of expression. This bill is a threat to the freedom of Canadians. When will this Liberal government revoke Bill C-10? The Honourable Minister.
L'Honorable Ministre.
The Honourable Minister.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Pardon, petit problème technique.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm sorry, I had a slight technical problem. Our artists are among the most severely affected by the pandemic in Canada. They are suffering psychologically and financially. C10 gives them the hope that things will improve by forcing web giants to invest in Canadian and Quebec stories and music. The Conservatives are blocking C10, which means they are taking the side of web giants against Canadian creators, who are losing hundreds of millions of dollars due to this. Why are the Conservatives taking the side of the richest companies on the planet? The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The reviews on the Minister's law before he pulls the comments down offline. The Globe and Mail called the Minister's performance amateur hour on C10. Open Media has said the Prime Minister and this minister have lost the plot with this law. Michael Geist, the leading expert, said Bill C10 represents an unconscionable attack on free expression. When is this government and that minister going to listen to Canadians and scrap Bill C10?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our artists are amongst the Canadians who've been hit the hardest by the pandemic. They're suffering financially and mentally. C10 brought them the hope that things would get better soon, with the promise of forcing web giants to invest in our stories and music. Now the Conservatives are stalling C10, siding with web giants against Canadian artists who are deprived of hundreds of millions of dollars. Mr. Speaker, why is the Conservative Party siding with Google, one of the wealthiest companies in the world, instead of Canadian musicians and artists?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
It's clear the minister doesn't even understand his own bill. If the CRTC can regulate what you see on your YouTube or Instagram feed, they can control what you see and what you learn about any given topic. Last year, that minister mused about licensing media companies. Now he's giving the government the ability to dictate which videos Canadians can see online. This bill is a direct attack on free speech. When is this minister going to drop his talking points, listen to Canadians, and scrap C10?
Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, maybe the Leader of the Opposition should actually read the bill, because Section 2.1 of the bill states that individuals who upload content on social media platforms such as Facebook or TikTok aren't considered broadcasters. This means, Mr. Speaker, that you and I can't be regulated by the CRTC. We've kept that clause. Again, Mr. Speaker, maybe the Leader of the Opposition should actually read the bill before he starts making statements on it.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Monsieur le Président, le gouvernement du...
Mr. Speaker, the Quebec government never asked for a moratorium on processing the files for qualified workers. Some qualified workers, such as nurses, have to wait 25 months before having their files approved by the federal government. In the rest of Canada, that stage only takes 6 months. Why is this government keeping Premier Legault and Quebec waiting 2 more years? 2 more years to have workers arrive in the middle of a pandemic. The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, we know that immigration is one of the cornerstones of our economy, including in Quebec. That is why we are delivering the qualified workers that Canada needs. 54% more than last year. We are on the right path to reach the right levels of immigration for Quebec. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Over the last 5 months, Conservatives have asked this government 47 different times to take action regarding the Line 5 pipeline. Thousands of Canadian jobs are on the line, from Alberta to Ontario to Quebec. This government is once again missing in action, and now the Michigan governor is calling the project a ticking time bomb. So, Mr. Speaker, for the 48th time, when are Canadians going to see this government finally stand up for Canadian workers and for our natural resources sector?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, people will not be left out in the cold. The heating of Canadian homes or the flying of Canadian jets or the operation of Canadian refineries are non-negotiable. Line 5 is not just vital to Canada, it is also vital to the United States. Therefore, it is vital to all of North America. Shutting it down would have profound consequences. 5,000 direct jobs in Sarnia, 23,000 indirect jobs in the region, thousands of jobs at refineries in Montreal and Lévis, but also in Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. And that is the case we are making. Line 5 is essential for North American energy security. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Rivière-du-Nord.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister claims that he was not aware of sexual misconduct allegations against General Vance. He claims that the Minister of Defence never informed him, but now he does know. He knows that the Minister of Defence had received a report from the Defence Ombudsman 3 years ago. He knows that the minister didn't do anything and that he kept him in the dark. My question is simple. Does the Prime Minister believe that it's acceptable that his Minister of Defense hid these allegations against General Vance from him? The Honourable Minister.
Clear that when the information was brought forward, they were immediately passed on to non-partisan public servants at the Privy Council office who's in charge of Governor and Council appointments. And they followed up the next day, Mr. Speaker. No politician should ever be involved in any type of investigation. But nonetheless, Mr. Speaker, we are going to stay focused on creating that culture change in the Canadian Armed Forces to making sure that we have harassment-free workplace in the Canadian Armed Forces, and that's our goal. Thank you.
L'honorable député de Rivière-du-Nord.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, when the Prime Minister was asked several years ago why he had appointed a cabinet with the same number of men and women, he replied, because it's 2015. Well, now it's 2021, and the Minister of Defense is willfully ignoring cases of sexual misconduct. It's 2021, and the Minister of Defense has not applied Justice Deschamps' recommendations. Because it's 2021, doesn't the Prime Minister believe that it's time to end the culture of silence in the Canadian Armed Forces by replacing the Minister and perhaps appointing a female Minister of Defense who could address this problem? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to make it very clear. I absolutely disagree with the member's assertions. Anytime, if any complaint was ever brought forward, they were immediately actioned upon. Just like this one, when Mr. Walburn brought information forward, it was immediately acted upon. And it was followed up the very next day, Mr. Speaker. And for the member to assert otherwise is absolutely false. Thank you.
L'honorable député de Burnaby Sud.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South. Mr. Speaker, we're in a pandemic. We need to get Canadians vaccinated, of course, but we have a responsibility to help others in the world. Less wealthy countries need an IP waiver for COVID-19 vaccines. We don't need more profits for big pharmaceutical companies. Will this Prime Minister commit to waiving COVID-19 vaccine patents? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government has always been and will always be a strong advocate for equitable access to affordable, safe, and life-saving COVID-19 vaccines around the world. We will actively participate in negotiations to waive intellectual property protection, particular to COVID-19 vaccines under the WTO agreement on TRIPS. This pandemic is not over until it's over everywhere, and we will continue to work towards a just and speedy recovery. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
The United States has already made a clear commitment that they will be supporting the suspension of patent protection. So my question is very clear. We're in a global pandemic. We need concrete steps. Poorer countries are asking for a patent waiver so that they can produce vaccines and save lives in their countries. So instead of protecting the profits of big pharmaceutical companies, will this Prime Minister support the patent waiver so that poorer countries can produce a vaccine and save lives?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Honourable Member for that question, and let me repeat my response. Canada will actively participate in negotiations to waive intellectual property protection, particular to COVID-19 vaccines under the WTO TRIPS agreement on TRIPS. We have been a leader in the global effort to ensure there is equitable access to successful vaccine and critical medical supplies around the world, and we're determined to continue our hard work with WTO members to reach an agreement and to find solutions that will accelerate the production and equitable distribution of vaccines. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Abbotsford.
Yesterday, the Parliamentary Budget Officer debunked the Liberal myth that the recent budget was about growth. In his report, Yves Giroux said the minister had overstated how much her avalanche of spending would boost economic growth. The minister claimed that her budget would create over 300,000 jobs, yet Mr. Giroux confirmed that only 1/4 of that number would materialize. This budget had nothing to do with growth and everything to do with fighting the next election. Why did the minister mislead Canadians?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it is that member who is misleading the House with his very question. The PBO report that he refers to only examined a portion of Canada's pandemic recovery strategy and left out over $30 billion in emergency supports to ensure households and businesses would be bridged through this pandemic so they can contribute to the recovery on the back end. Canadians can rest assured, unlike the Conservatives, our government is going to be there for households and businesses in our communities as long as it takes, no matter what it takes.
The honourable member for Abbotsford.
Well, the member completely missed my point. The parliamentary budget officer reported that this so-called growth budget would not grow the economy as promised. He said the minister had overstated revenues, understated deficits, and that much of her spending had nothing to do with stimulating the economy. Clearly, the minister exaggerated how much growth the budget would produce. What's clear is that this is not a growth budget. It's a budget that misled Canadians. In fact, this government used the pandemic to recklessly spend on its own political survival. Why?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member is wrong as a matter of fact and as a matter of principle. On the facts, his partisan argument contradicts the evidence of the IMF, private sector forecasts outlined in the budget, and major credit rating agencies, which have reaffirmed Canada's AAA rating. As a matter of principle, his solution to the false problem that he depicts is to yank supports for households and businesses at a time when they need it most. Our strategy from the beginning has been to extend a life raft to those households and businesses to prevent economic scarring, because we know that the economic recovery depends on everyone's participation when COVID-19 is a thing of the past.
Honorable député de...
The honourable member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, not only did the government take much too long to table a budget, but it's overestimating the stimulation that this budget will grant the economy. The government is predicting rates of growth double those predicted by the parliamentary budget officer, and in some cases regarding employment predictions, they are even predicting levels 8 times better. Once again, the Liberals are creating a smokescreen here. Why are they artificially inflating their numbers? What are they hiding from Canadians? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member ought to appreciate that the economic growth projections included in the budget are the result of the private sector forecasts on average by the major economists at Canadian banks. This is not something that the government has done for partisan reasons. It is designed to ensure objectivity. One of those particular banks, Scotiabank, actually pointed to the growth agenda outlined in this budget, where it stated overall measures seem well targeted to raise potential output by focusing on economic inclusion, the green transition, and measures to encourage business investment. We know that to bust out of this recession, we need to invest in measures that will include growth, and that is precisely what Budget 2021 is doing.
The honourable member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, this government has no consideration for the well-being of women in our armed forces. Not only did Commander Vance continue to serve for 3 years after allegations were made against him, but the man who replaced him is also facing allegations. Meanwhile, the women who suffered at the hands of these men must continue to undergo the effects of their experiences for many more years. Mr. Speaker, what excuse does the minister have this time for having let down these brave women serving in our armed forces? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it is clear that measures that we have already put in place have not gone far enough. And we need to move faster, and we will. That's why in Budget 2021, we're committing $236 million to eliminate sexual misconduct and gender-based violence in the Canadian Armed Forces. We're expanding the reach of the Sexual Misconduct Response Center. And also, we listen to our survivors, and we're going to be adding online peer-to-peer support as well. All options to create a safer future for women who serve in the Canadian Armed Forces are going to be considered to change the culture. Thank you.
The honourable member for Selkirk, Interlake Eastman.
Mr. Speaker, the media has been unrelenting in its criticisms of the Defence Minister and this Liberal government for their cover-up of the sexual misconduct allegations in the forces. The Toronto Star editorial board said, "The fact remains that the Liberals betrayed its own feminist principles. Most of all, it let down the women who serve in Canada's military. And what a failure. Through this minister, the Liberal government abandoned the woman who brought forward the allegation against Vance 3 years ago. Will the Defence Minister accept responsibility for his failure on this file and this unmitigated disaster?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd ask the member opposite to put the hyper-partisan politics aside and work together as parliamentarians so we can create the culture change that's needed for the Canadian Armed Forces. I look forward to the recommendations of the committee. As we stated, all options are currently on the table to make sure that we can take a much more bolder step, because yes, we do owe it to our women in the Canadian Armed Forces to have an absolute harassment-free workplace in the Canadian Armed Forces, something we are absolutely committed to doing. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Selkirk Interlake Eastman.
Well, the correct answer would have been yes, he is responsible. Mr. Speaker, the Star goes on to say, the Liberals would have done themselves a favor by rotating the Defence Minister into another position some time ago, but it's too late for that now. The Minister's credibility has been thoroughly shredded by the sexual misconduct scandals paralyzing the Canadian Forces that calling for his resignation seems rather beside the point. End quote. Mr. Speaker, the minister only has himself to blame. Will the Minister of National Defence admit he's the architect of his own demise?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'll let the member opposite continue down the mudslinging partisan politics, and I will always remain committed to the women and men of the Canadian Armed Forces, something that I've been committed to from day one. Mr. Speaker, when it came to our defense policy, adding the funding that's absolutely needed, making sure that we had a gender-based analysis plus conducted in everything that we do. Absolutely, Mr. Speaker, we have a lot more work to do. We have not been able to go far enough to support the survivors, but we absolutely will, and we will get this done. Thank you.
L'honorable député de Rivière-des-Mille-Îles.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-des-Mille-Îles. Mr. Speaker, victims of fraud shouldn't have to pay the price for what has happened to them. But that is what the Minister of Revenue is asking of the victims of CERB fraud. She's asking them to pay taxes on sums that they didn't ask for or receive. The Minister is saying, pay now, we will investigate, and if you're innocent, perhaps one day you'll get the money back. The opposite is what should be done. Could the Minister clearly say to victims, you can keep your money until the investigation is over? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The interpreter would like to mention that the minister's boom mic appears to be raised and the sound is faint.
Excuse, nous avons un appel au règlement. Je pense l'honorable député de Manicouagan, un appel au règlement.
Oui, Monsieur le Président. Je voulais simplement signaler que la ministre n'avait pas son micro et que c'était dit.
Unfortunately, the member from Manicouagan's sound is too poor to continue interpreting.
À tous les députés de mettre leur micro.
I would like to remind all members to lower their boom mic to ensure that everyone can hear them, because we're all interested in what you have to say. All right, we'll go back to the beginning of the minister's question. That way we can all hear the question. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I understand that the Bloc Québécois likes to scare people, but we need to stick to the facts, and the facts are the following. Canadians who receive a T4A for CERB payments that they did not request should contact the CRA as quickly as possible. And fraud victims will not be held responsible for the sums that have been paid to fraudsters who have stolen their identity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Rivière-des-Mille-Îles. Incredible, Mr. Speaker. Why can't this minister tell victims clearly, keep your money while we're investigating? That's it. Why does it seem to be too complicated for her to tell them that they won't need to pay taxes on sums that they never received? Right now, people on the ground and the victims are not satisfied with this minister's vague messages. She must know that. The minister knows that victims need to hear a clear message. She knows what she should be saying. She needs to say so quickly and clearly. The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, it's very clear that the Bloc Québécois must have Pinocchio syndrome. Fraud victims will not be held responsible for the sums paid to fraudsters who have stolen their identity. So for anyone who has erroneously received a T4A, I would encourage them to call the CRA, Mr. Speaker, and we will do everything we can to support them. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Rivière-des-Mille-Îles. Mr. Speaker, it's very hard to understand what's happening here, and fraud is causing an additional major problem which the Liberals don't seem to have foreseen. Some people will lose their access to government aid because the fraud increases their so-called annual revenue. So they might lose, for example, their Canada Child benefit or their GST credit. So they are penalized twice over. They're being charged tax on sums they didn't receive, and they're losing their benefits. Once again, they are paying due to the fact that they've fallen victim to fraud. What will the minister do to ensure that people don't lose their benefits due to their artificially inflated income? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I've mentioned twice already, I would like to say that victims of fraud will not be held responsible for the money sent to fraudsters. They will not have to send that money to the CRA, Mr. Speaker. And I would encourage my colleague to support people who are looking to get the benefits that they have a right to. They need to fill their tax return. That's important to help the most vulnerable among us.
Mr. Speaker, Sarah and her husband tried to have a baby for 15 years, and their first little one finally arrived in January. Carrie is having her first child, twins actually she's having, in August. Samantha has 2 little ones at home and a third on the way. And what do these women all have in common, Mr. Speaker? Well, they all lost their jobs due to COVID. Most are on EI now, and all have their first year with their babies cut short because this Liberal government is forcing them back to work, some of them after only 4 weeks after giving birth. Why is the Minister of Employment cutting maternity benefits short for Canadian women?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, since day one, we've worked hard to improve and modernize the EI system. We've continued those efforts through Budget 2021. We've introduced flexibilities into the EI system for last year and for another year, so women exactly like those referred to by the member can have easier access to maternity and parental leaves, as can all parents. Listen, we know there's more to be done on the EI file. I look forward to working with my colleague on this effort so that every Canadian worker has access to better and more comprehensive support.
Honourable Member for Kildonan St. Paul.
Mr. Speaker, while I appreciate the minister's remarks, this is not the first time the Liberal government has done this. We know in March 2020, they barred pregnant women from receiving CERB, forcing them onto EI months earlier than planned and cutting short their maternity leave. And yet here we are yet again. The Liberal government, we know, is really showering money on everyone at unprecedented levels, except it would seem on pregnant women. And these pregnant women are really being left behind, and there's nothing they can do about it except reach out to their MPs and pray for a solution. And, you know, it's Mother's Day coming up this weekend. Will the minister support pregnant mothers and restore their full maternity leave?
Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the question, and I wish all mothers and caregivers across the country a very happy Mother's Day this Sunday. Mr. Speaker, we have been working to modernize and making EI more equitable since the beginning. This includes giving parents the choice of taking either 12 or 18 months for parental leave. We've also supported parents who face unique challenges from the COVID pandemic by providing the one-time credit, by enlarging our flexibilities and extending them for another year, setting a minimum benefit rate of $500 a week for claims after September 27th, 2020. Of course, there's more to do, and we'll keep working so that EI is there for all Canadians. Thank you.
Honorable député de Montmagny-Lillet.
The Honourable Member for Montmagny-Lillet, Kamouraska, Rivière-du-Loup. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has repeatedly said that he will not let anyone fall through the cracks during this pandemic. Unfortunately, that's exactly what has happened to young mothers who can't access the Canada Recovery Caregiving benefit because they were not able to find a childcare spot for their children between the second and third wave so that they could go back to work. The government isn't going to fix this urgent problem by creating a national childcare system in 2022. Why does this so-called feminist Prime Minister, why is he preventing these mothers from accessing the CRCB?
Honourable colleague for the question. Mr. Speaker, we have worked tirelessly to ensure that our EI system and the temporary recovery benefits support and include as many Canadian workers as possible, in particular women. Of course, as we know, they've been hit the hardest through this pandemic. We've introduced flexibilities, which means that you have to have less hours to qualify for both regular and special benefits. We've extended these flexibilities for an hour. We have a minimum benefit rate of $500 per week, for claims established after September 27, 2020. We are there for all Canadian workers, women in particular, and we are committed to modernizing our EI system to be even more there for them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member. Oui, un rappel au règlement.
Point of order. The honourable member for Lac Saint-Jean. I'm sorry, I was going to say Saint-Jean, but it's Lac Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, between the exchange between the member for Rivière-des-Mille-Îles, I could hear a noise in the background. And I think I know who the culprit is. I think it was the member for Scarborough-Gilwood. He doesn't seem to be muted on my screen. Perhaps he could put his computer on mute. That would be better because it was hard to follow the exchange. Thank you very much. We will check with our technicians. Thank you.
The honourable member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, I was absolutely delighted yesterday to hear that the U.S. government has recognized the extraordinary realities of COVID-19 and has committed to waiving intellectual property rights, putting the lives of millions of people ahead of big profits for pharmaceutical companies. Yet we have heard nothing but platitudes, half promises, and deflection from the Liberals. I'm proud of Joe Biden and the United States government for their decision to support the TRIPS waiver. When will Canadians be able to be proud of our government? When will the Liberals put people ahead of profits?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government continues to be a leader in the global effort to ensure that there is equitable access to successful vaccines and critical medical supplies around the world. We will actively participate in negotiations to waive intellectual property protection, particularly to COVID-19 vaccines under the WTO agreement on TRIPS. We agree. The pandemic isn't over anywhere until it is over everywhere, and we will continue to work with our international partners towards a speedy and a just recovery.
The honourable member for Vancouver Kingsway.
This government has clearly failed to control the spread of COVID through our borders. Liberals were slow to act, measures have huge loopholes, and enforcement is weak. They apply hotel quarantine rules only to travelers arriving by air, leading to thousands simply crossing at U.S. border points. Now we see the Liberals are allowing 2 of the 4 Canadian airports who receive international passengers to fail to enforce hotel quarantine rules at all. Why is this government allowing travelers in Alberta and Quebec to ignore federal quarantine rules, leaving all Canadians vulnerable to variants of concern?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I would remind the member that we have some of the strongest international travel measures in the world. In fact, all travelers that are traveling for non-essential reasons must submit to a pre-departure test, a post-arrival test, 3 days in a GAA if traveling by air, 14-day quarantine for all, and a day 8 test. And Mr. Speaker, we'll work with our provincial and municipal partners to ensure the Quarantine Act is enforced.
L'honorable député de Sudbury.
The honourable member for Sudbury. Mr. Speaker, since 2015, this government has been a strong advocate for the rights of official language minority communities from coast to coast to coast, but especially in support of our Franco-Ontarian community. As Laurentian students face an uncertain future, they know that this government will support them. Can the Minister of Official Languages tell the House what measures she is taking to ensure that Franco-Ontarians have access to post-secondary education in Northern Ontario? The Honourable Minister for Official Languages. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to my colleague for his excellent work and his excellent question. On this side of the House, of course, we have always stood up for official language minority communities, and we always will. Post-secondary education institutions are the heart of official language minority communities, and we're very concerned about the issue, and we're following it very closely. That's why we're trying to find solutions. We're working with the province, and we're going to make sure that there is a strong post-secondary institution for Francophones in Northern Ontario. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Charlesbourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the award for letting the cat out of the bag has to go to two Liberal members, the member for Kingston and the Islands and the member for Whitby, for having admitted in this House that if the government had done its job of getting vaccines for Canadians on time, we wouldn't be in this mess. Canada is now facing a third wave. The Prime Minister has been making announcements about vaccine delivery, but Canadians are still waiting. Our small and medium-sized businesses are suffering needlessly. Can the Prime Minister be as honest as his two members and admit that we would not be in this mess if he had taken action in time? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it gives me great pleasure to say that over 17.4 million vaccines have been shipped to provinces and territories to date. And as of today, 14.5 million doses have been administered across Canada. We're making tremendous progress, Mr. Speaker, and it's really in partnership with all provinces and territories who are administering vaccines, yes, to people that are vulnerable to COVID, yes, in partnership with our corporations, yes, in partnership with communities and with unions. Mr. Speaker, all across this country, Canadians are getting vaccinated, and I encourage everyone to take the vaccination when it's their turn.
Honourable Député. The Honourable Member for Charlesbourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals keep insisting that Canadians should take the advice of scientists because they're experts, and we agree. But this Liberal government has totally ignored the recommendations of the scientists who developed the vaccines. They say that the second dose of the vaccine should be administered 3 months after the first, and the Liberals say that it should be 4 months. Worse, a Liberal senator is now saying that we should consider mixing the vaccines because of this uncertain supply. The Liberals are playing games with the health of Canadians in order to hide their incompetence. Why? The Honourable Minister.
Oh, Mr. Speaker, on the contrary, those kinds of assertions are not what Canadians want to hear. What they want to hear is encouragement to continue on the path that we're on, because in fact, vaccinations are saving lives and stopping the spread. Why, just recently, the Public Health Agency of Ontario released a report that showed out of the 3.5 million Ontarians that had been vaccinated to date, only 0.06% became infected, Mr. Speaker, and no deaths in any of those cases. In fact, the majority of those cases of infections happened before the 14 days. And Mr. Speaker, we'll continue to work with provinces and territories to make sure that everyone can get vaccinated when it's their turn.
Member for Calgary, Nose Hill.
Given the need for clear, transparent, and effective communications on advice regarding vaccine efficacy and safety, what concrete action has the Minister of Health undertaken this week to correct deficiencies and better coordinate public communications between NACI, PHAC, Health Canada, her office, and the Cabinet?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think we've been extremely clear throughout this vaccination process that vaccines do indeed save lives and they stop the spread. And I want to thank the Public Health Agency of Ontario for their recent report that demonstrated exactly that. I'll continue to say that in this House, Mr. Speaker. Certainly public health leaders are saying that. We know that Canadians are stepping up to the plate. They're getting vaccinated. We'll continue to deliver the vaccines to the provinces and territories. We'll continue to be partners in getting those vaccines in arms. Mr. Speaker, we can see the finish line. We need to get there together.
The Honourable Member for Calgary, Nose Hill.
No, Mr. Speaker. The advice on vaccines this week have not been clear from the federal government. The confusing communications regarding vaccines that the federal government has presided over can't be allowed to continue. And the person who has the responsibility to make sure this happens is the Minister of Health. So can she acknowledge that there's a problem and tell us what action she has taken or will be taking to correct deficiencies and better coordinate public communications between NACI, PHAC, Health Canada, her and her office, and the Cabinet?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let me be perfectly clear. Vaccines are indeed saving lives and stopping the spread of COVID-19. That is a goal that I think every member in this House would agree is an important one and that we're all striving for. I will repeat again, it is important that Canadians accept the first vaccine that's offered to them. If Canadians are questioning if vaccination is right for them, the best place to get credible information is from their healthcare provider or from a government website at the provincial, the federal, or at the municipal level. There are many players working to vaccinate Canadians. I would encourage all members in this House to get vaccinated when it's their term and to encourage their constituents to do so as well.
L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Beauport-Limoilou. Mr. Speaker, the Bloc Québécois has been calling for a polar icebreaker contract for the Davie Shipyard for years, so today's announcement is not bad news. But the Davie Shipyard has still not been named as the third partner in the naval strategy, no contract has been signed, there's no start date, and there's no timeline either. Can the government tell us when these details will be made public? Otherwise, this afternoon's announcement is clearly nothing more than an election strategy. The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, it seems like the Bloc is unhappy about everything. First they say, oh, there are no contracts being given to the Davie Shipyard. Now there are, but they're still unhappy. They're so grumpy. Now, the Conservatives never wanted to give anything to the Davie Shipyard, but we are delivering for the Davie Shipyard. The Honourable Member for Beauport-Limoilou. Mr. Speaker, you can understand why I mentioned elections. The government had a polar icebreaker contract to award, and it was between the Davie Shipyard and its rival C-SPAN in BC. Then, in a surprise move, the government announced a contract for an additional icebreaker from C-SPAN, even though that shipyard had been stripped of an identical contract in 2019 because it was unable to start construction. In short, the government is saying yes to everyone without regard to C-SPAN's construction capacity, timelines, or costs. Are these contracts that they're announcing today, or are they just election promises? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, the only party talking about an election at this time is the Bloc Québécois. We certainly haven't said the word election at all. Today, we are announcing very good news for people who work at the Davie Shipyard and for everyone involved in the supply chain. Thousands of jobs, thousands of small businesses across Quebec. It seems to me that the Bloc Québécois should be happy. Now, clearly, the Conservatives never wanted to help the Davie Shipyard. Well, the Bloc Québécois can't do it, but we are delivering for the Davie Shipyard.
Central Okanagan, Similkameen, Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, despite signing on to an international agreement and giving companies 5 years to comply, this Liberal government has handed out major exemptions to its friends in big business to rules limiting HFC emissions. In the United States, the Environmental Protection Agency sent such requests packing, as HFCs are a far more damaging greenhouse gas than carbon. While these Liberals said yes to these high-priced lobbyists, why is this Liberal government not forcing these polluters to invest in domestic facilities like the United States instead of giving big exemptions to their highly connected favorites?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government has committed to an 85% reduction in HFCs by 2036 through the Kigali Amendment, and we are fully committed to meeting our international obligations. The temporary permit that the honourable member references are given based on technical criteria and are assessed on a case-by-case basis. We will continue to work with all industry stakeholders to ensure that we meet our international obligations to phase down HFCs and protect our environment.
L'honorable député de...
The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, I recently sent a letter to the Minister of Immigration to once again denounce the interminable delays in temporary foreign worker files. I had expressed my concern to him last year in a letter and also in the House. I even signed an open letter on Monday with 14 companies from my region. Nothing has changed, Mr. Speaker. Businesses in my riding are anxiously awaiting the workers. Millions of dollars in contracts are at stake. Will the Minister continue to sit on his hands until the election? Or will he finally take action on this file? Because it just doesn't make sense. The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, temporary foreign workers are essential for our businesses, farms, and other facilities. That's why we facilitated the arrival of temporary foreign workers throughout the pandemic. Last year, we welcomed over 85% of the agricultural workers that we need, and I will stay in touch with my colleague in terms of the progress. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. COVID-19 has been a heavy burden for Canadians. Did this government take advantage of the pandemic to give contracts and millions of dollars to their friends? Companies in the Quebec City area that have been established for several years and are accredited by Health Canada were ignored when it came to supplying personal protective equipment. Can this Liberal government, which was involved in the sponsorship scandal, assure us that this time it did not engage in partisan favoritism when awarding contracts in the middle of the pandemic? The Honourable Minister.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, we had to acquire millions, billions of pieces of PPE throughout the pandemic, including billions of items from manufacturers and suppliers based in Canada. We thank them, and we will continue to get the necessary supply to protect all Canadians throughout the pandemic. The Honourable Member for Brome-Missisquoi. Mr. Speaker, the future of Canada's agriculture and agri-food sector lies with our youth. They're helping to build a strong and innovative sector ready to meet the changing needs of tomorrow. In order for them to consider the agriculture sector as a career option, it's important for them to be exposed to our farmers. Can the Minister tell us how our government will support jobs for young people in the agricultural sector? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to inform you that the Jobs and Skills for Youth in Agriculture program is now open. This year, around 2,000 young people between the ages of 15 and 30 will be able to take advantage of the program. I invite employers in the sector from the farm to the lab to offer a work experience and to be inspired by the dynamic work ethic and vision of our youth. The grant can be up to $14,000 or 50% of the salary, plus $5,000 for transportation and accommodation if needed. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Bow River. Is he on? Honourable Member for Bow River, I believe you're on mute.
There we go, Mr. Speaker. Since 1960, Prime Minister John Diefenbaker's Bill of Rights has entrenched fundamental freedoms for Canadians, including freedom of speech. Over 60 years later, the Liberal Party aims to muzzle Canadians' freedom of expression on the new public square, that is the internet. Technology evolves, but freedoms must stand. Why in 2021 do the Liberals want to limit Canadians' freedom of speech? And Mr. Minister, I have read the bill, and I know the difference between a person and content. Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the member opposite, who's a member of the Heritage Committee, should know that it's Section 2.1 of the bill says that individuals who upload content from social media platform aren't considered broadcasters. And he also knows that Section 2.3 states that the act shall be construed and applied in a manner that is consistent with the freedom of expression and journalistic, creative, and programming independence enjoyed by broadcasting undertakings. He knows that full well, and he's just trying to mislead Canadians, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Medicine Hat, Carson Warner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Recently, I asked this government how much debt interest would cost when rates rise by 2%. The same stress test that new home buyers have to be faced with. The Bank of Canada has announced that interest rates will be rising. So, $40 billion a year is being spent on interest rates. The government has already put critical infrastructure systems at risk because of it. Why does the minister not have a credible plan to manage debt and ensure that things like infrastructure, security and safety, clean drinking water, and our healthcare systems are sustainable for the long term?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I direct the honourable member to Annex 3 of the budget, which lays out in specific detail the debt management strategy of the government. I'd point in particular to the fact that by fiscal year 22-23, we actually anticipate the raw debt servicing charges for Canada will be $1.6 billion less than was projected in the fall economic statement of 2019 before the pandemic. The reality is our AAA credit rating has recently been reaffirmed, specifically because of the measures we have been put in place to support households and businesses to prevent economic scarring, and the outlook for Canada is positive according to any economist with credibility in this conversation. I would invite further conversations with the member if he'd like to dig into greater detail.
Honourable Member for Foothills.
Well, the member from Kingston the Islands accidentally told the truth last night when he said, when Conservatives come in here, they're only talking about vaccines. Yes, there's a lot we could have done better to making sure we were better prepared. And he went on to say, absolutely, if vaccines were here sooner, we probably wouldn't be standing in this place right now. Does the Minister of Health agree with her colleague that we have better prepared and she had secured vaccines for more Canadians, we could have avoided the Liberal third wave? Because I certainly do.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are very pleased that we have continued to advance the supply of vaccines into this country. Over 28 million vaccines, in fact, have been moved earlier than were initially planned. We've vaccinated over 14 million Canadians to date. We'll have enough vaccines to supply 48 to 50 million doses between now and the end of June. And that's putting us at the very top of the G20, Mr. Speaker. We're going to continue our work to get vaccines to this country and to vaccinate Canadians as quickly as possible.
Honourable Member for Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, there are a number of vibrant small and medium-sized businesses that are in my riding of Richmond Hill, some of which have been hit the hardest during this pandemic. 2 weeks ago, the Minister of Small Businesses, Export Development and International Trade had a productive meeting with our Richmond Hill SME Community Council. Can the Minister highlight some of the measures in this budget that are dedicated toward entrepreneurship and growing small and medium-sized businesses in our communities? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank the honourable member from Richmond Hill for that important question. It was a pleasure to be there with him. Budget 2021 is the most small business friendly budget in Canadian history. From decisive action to lowering credit card fees to historic support for digital and technology adoption, we're making ambitious and targeted investments to accelerate job and business growth, driving a strong, sustainable and inclusive economic recovery. Our small businesses and main streets are the heart of our communities and the backbone of the economy. Mr. Speaker, I want small businesses to know we've got their back.
The Honourable Member for Timmins, James Bay.
Chuck Rafiki, the former CFO of the Liberal Party of Canada, and he made a fortune when the Attorney General changed the pot laws. Now it's rumoured that Rafiki is going to buy the troubled porn empire MindGeek Pornhub, a company at the centre of international allegations of hosting child abuse and non-consensual sexual assault videos. And yet the Attorney General has given his company a complete free pass on their mandatory reporting obligations. Why is this government ignoring their obligation to make these sites safe for survivors rather than just a safe investment for their powerful Liberal cronies?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have taken significant steps with respect to the issue of exploitation of a sexual nature online. With respect to Pornhub, we have strong and comprehensive laws in place to ensure that those who exploit children face punishment to the fullest extent of the law. While the overwhelming majority of prosecutions of child pornography are conducted by the provinces, what we know is that in 2017-2018, 3,380 charges were laid for child pornography offences, resulting in 674 prosecutions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Kitchener South Hespeler.
Mr. Speaker, I'm beyond disappointed by the opposition's fear-mongering on freedom of speech, especially when they know they are spreading misinformation to Canadians. It is shameful. They are holding the Canadian cultural sector hostage for cheap political gains, and they are siding with web giants. Can the Minister please clarify to this House and tell us about the importance of Bill C-10?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I wish to thank the honourable member for his question. The bill is about making web giants pay their fair share and not about individual content. The committee decided to include social media companies to ensure that they pay their fair share to Canadian artists and musicians. Think of YouTube making millions of dollars on the work of Canadian artists. Tonight at committee, I urge the Conservative Party members to let the Canadian Heritage Committee continue its important work and not delay this bill any further. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That's all the time we have for today. C'est tout le temps que nous avons. Nous avons une demande.
We have a request for unanimous consent for the member from the member for Saint-Jean. Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. There have been consultations among the parties, and I think that you will find there's unanimous consent for the following motion: that this House welcome and support the decision of the President of the United States to support the resolution presented to the World Trade Organization to temporarily suspend the patents of vaccines against COVID-19 for developing countries, and that this House ask the government to also support this initiative. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All those opposed to the honourable member's motion will please say nay.
Okay. Oh, no, we have a nay. So there's no unanimous consent.
Member for Kingston and the Islands.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I believe if you seek it, I hope you'll find unanimous consent for the following motion: that the House welcome and support the announcement of the President of the United States to waive intellectual property particular to COVID-19 vaccines under the World Trade Organization provisions, and that the House ask the Government of Canada to agree to join the proposed negotiations.
All those opposed to the honourable member moving the motion will please say nay. Okay, no, we don't have unanimous consent. And then we have a point of order. The honourable member for Central Nova.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In my response to the member from Medicine Hat, Carson Warner, I had a small slip up and I referred to our debt management strategy being in Annex 2 of the budget, rather in Annex 3 of the budget. It is in fact in Annex 2 where the member will find the government's debt management strategy, including the reaffirmation of our AAA credit rating and the fact that Canada currently has the lowest debt to GDP ratio in the G7. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, les travaux de la Chambre, l'honorable leader de la...
The Honourable Official Opposition House Leader. Yes, it's Thursday, so it's time to update our parliamentary agenda. As you know, Mr. Speaker, next week is the 5th week in a row that we've been here in the House. Not to mention the fact that we keep working in our ridings 7 days a week. So I'd like my honourable colleague on the government side, the Quebec Lieutenant and Government House Leader, to inform the House of the work in the days to come, because we are really not lazy smurfs. The Honourable Government House Leader. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'd like to thank my colleague. Look, this gives me the opportunity to share with the House what we